Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. It is time to do the May tag. And April has brought lots of flowers, or April showers have brought lots of May flowers, and the weather is hopefully warming up for everybody. It is nice and warm here. It has, however, been stormy this week as I film this. Today is the 24th of April, and if all goes according to plan today, I will get most of my remaining filming done today. So that just leaves editing, and then you guys will have videos all month long into June, and I can enjoy my visit with my parents, and everybody's happy. So, May. How is it already May? It's amazing. So, May is a somewhat busy month. It's much busier than June, to be honest. So, let's talk about the monthly holidays in May. And for some reason, my street is very loud and noisy today. I wonder why. What's going on? It is National Walking Month. It is National Foster Care Month. It is National Lupus Awareness Month. And it is Arthritis Awareness Month. I happen to know somebody that has lupus or arthritis. We all know a foster care set of parents, and we all walk, so it's a month for everybody. And there are a couple of weekly holidays in May to take note of. The first two sort of overlap in the books I chose. So first is National Hurricane Preparedness Week. That is the 5th through the 11th of May. And National Children's Book Week, which is the 6th through the 12th of May. So I do have a couple of recommendations here. First up is Hurricane Season by Lauren K. Denton. I do not own this. I do know that Amanda owns it, and I believe it is on her 25 and 25 books picked by Blake. And I will read you the one-line blurb that Goodreads has. They have a much longer description, but I'm just going to read the first line. Hurricane Season is the story of sisterhood, motherhood, and an unconventional journey to healing, and the relationships that must be mended along the way. I've never read anything by this author, but it sounds interesting, and I love that cover. So, next up is a book I read as a child, probably more than once, and if I remember correctly, this won the Newbery Award. That is A Time of Wonder by Robert McCluskey, and like I said, no, it won the Caldecott Medal. I absolutely love this book, and I will read you the back. Out on the islands that poke their rocky shores above the waters of Pentecost Bay, you can watch the time of the world go by, from minute to minute, hour to hour, from day to day. So begins the classical story of one summer on a Maine island from the author of One Morning in May and Blueberries for Sal. Both books I read as a child, both books I absolutely loved. The spell of rain, the gulls in a foggy morning, and the excitement of sailing, the quiet of the night, the sudden terror of a hurricane. And in the end, the peace of the island as the family packs up to leave are shown in poetic language and vibrant, evocative pictures. I read this book easily 50 plus years ago, along with Blueberries for Sal and One Morning in Maine. And I can tell you without a doubt, I read them multiple times each. I loved each and every one of them. And they were fantastic. And they're all classics. Time of Wonder was published in 1957. So it's not exactly new. Okay. And the last weekly celebration for May that I chose this year is National Nurses Week, which is the 6th to the 12th. And I do have a couple of classic book recommendations for this. And this is an entire series. I believe there's 20 books in this series. That is Cherry Ames, Student Nurse by Helen Wells. I have read this. I think I have read every book in this series. And I will read you the blurb. In Student Nurse, Cherry starts nursing school at Spencer with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Would she have what it takes to be a nurse? She leaves her quiet town of Hilton, Illinois for the bustle of hospital life to meet challenges she wouldn't have imagined. The U.S. is at war. Many nurses have gone to the front, and there is a shortage of RNs at Spencer, which Cherry and her classmates help to fill as they learn the skills they need to graduate. And who is the mysterious patient in the secret room that no one seems to know anything about? Should Cherry risk expulsion to save his life? None of these books are long by any stretch of the imagination. The first book in the series is 224 pages. And I loved this series so much. And if you look up nursing fiction on Goodreads, there's a lot of it. This is the only nursing fiction I have read. And honestly, I loved this series when I was reading it. Okay, next up, let's do... First up is May 3rd. That is National Garden Meditation Day. We all know by now that I do love to go out and putter in my garden. Sometimes with great success, sometimes without any success. That's okay. That's all part of gardening. I will tell you that as I film this, all of my rose bushes are in full bloom and just laden with buds and open flowers, and I need to go deadhead them today and put some in the house, and I couldn't be more pleased about that. So, what gardening fiction did I choose? I don't think I have previously mentioned any of these, but if I have, I apologize. So first up would be The Garden Plot by Marty Wingate. This is the first in the Potting Shed mystery series, and it's a cozy mystery. And I love his writing. Prue Park dreamed of living in England. After the Dallas native follows an impulse and moves to London, she can't imagine ever leaving, though she has yet to find a plum position as a head gardener. Now, as the sublet on her flat nears its end, the threat of forced departure looms. Determined to stay in her beloved adopted country, Prue takes a small, private gardening jobs throughout the city. On one such gig, in Chelsea, she makes an extraordinary find. Digging in the soil of a potting shed, Prue uncovers an ancient Roman mosaic. But enthusiasm over her discovery is soon dampened when, 2 days later, she finds in the same spot a man's bludgeoned corpse. As the London police swarm her worksite, ever-inquisitive Prue can't quite manage to distance herself from the investigation. Much to the dismay of stern Detective Chief Inspector Christopher Pierce. It seems that as much as he tries, even handsome DCI Pierce can't keep Prue safe from a brutal killer who thinks she's already dug up too much. These are available on Kindle Unlimited. They're just so enjoyable, and if you like gardening and getting, dirt under your fingernails and making your yard look beautiful, or, tasty plants, you will enjoy this series. Okay, next up would be the 9th book in a series that I know I have not talked about before. That is The Garden Intrigue by Lauren Willig. This is the 9th book in the Pink Carnation series, and it is historical fiction. I have these on Audible. I don't know exactly where I am on Audible in the series. I know I have started it. I'm probably going to restart it, but I love Lauren's writing, so I will read you the description of this one. An atrocious poet teams up with an American widow to prevent Napoleon's invasion of England. Secret agent Augustus Whittlesby has spent a decade undercover in France, posing as an insufferably bad poet. The French surveillance officers can't bear to read his work closely enough to recognize the information drowned in a sea of verbiage. New York-born Emma Morris Delagarde is a thorn in Augustus's side. An old school friend of Napoleon's stepdaughter, she came to France with her uncle, the American envoy, eloped with a Frenchman, and has been rattling around the salons of Paris ever since. Widowed for 4 years, she entertains herself by drinking too much champagne, holding a weekly salon, and loudly critiquing Augustus's poetry. As Napoleon pursues his plans for the invasion of England, Whittlesby hears of a top-secret device to be demonstrated at a house party at Malmaison. If you enjoy historical fiction set, not in England, not during Regency, not, during one of the world wars, I highly recommend this series. They are well written, they are twisty, they are well plotted, and you don't often get books set in France during the Napoleonic Wars, and so I highly recommend it. Okay, next up would be The Last Garden in England by Julie Kelly. I have not read this. I need to read this. It is constantly on my radar. So, it's triple timeline, by the way. I will read you the description for this. I love the cover. I absolutely love the cover of this book. Present day. Emma Levitt, who has dedicated her career to breathing new life into long neglected gardens, has just been given the opportunity of a lifetime to restore the gardens of famed Highbury House estate, designed in 1907 by her hero, Venetia Smith. But as Emma dives deeper into the garden's past, she begins to uncover secrets that have long lain hidden. 1907, a talented artist with a growing reputation for her ambitious work, Venetia Smith has carved out a niche for herself as a garden designer to industrialists, solicitors, and bankers looking to show off their wealth with sumptuous country houses. When she is hired to design the gardens of Highbury House, she is determined to make them a triumph. But the gardens and the people she meets promise to change her life forever. 1944. When land girl Beth Pedley arrives at a farm on the outskirts of the village of Highbury, all she wants to find is a place she can call home. Cook Stella Adderton, on the other hand, is desperate to leave Highbury House to pursue her own dreams. And widow Diana Simons, the mistress of the grand house, is anxiously trying to cling to her pre-war life now that her home has been requisitioned and transformed into a convalescent hospital for wounded soldiers. But when war threatens Highbury House's treasured gardens, these three very different women are drawn together by a secret that will last for decades. Yeah. I need to read this one. And, hang on. And we can't forget The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. Again, haven't read her. Need to read her. I own like 4 books by her and have not read her, so I need to fix that. Don't know when that's going to happen, but I need to fix that. Okay, let's see if there's any more gardening recommendations. Okay. One more. And this fits in perfectly with Children's Book Week. That is The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. I read these, again, more than half a century ago. Wow, I just made myself feel kind of elderly. That's okay. I don't mind. Like most of the universe, how can you not love Beatrix Potter? And yeah. Okay. Let's move to a different day. This 6th of May is National Scrapbooking Day. And my brain, as I was pulling books for this, told me there were far more books about fiction books about scrapbooking than I found doing a quick search. So I will share what I found. First up would be Scrapbook of Secrets by Molly Cox Bryan. I may have read this. It is the first book in the Cumberland Creek mystery series. It's cozy mystery. It's just over 300 pages. And I will read you a little bit. A debut author presents the first book in a new scrapbooking theme mystery series, which features a small town setting, quirky characters, and suspense that cozy mystery readers and crafters are sure to love. Having traded in her career as a successful investigative journalist for the life of a stay-at-home mom in picturesque Cumberland Creek, Virginia, Annie can't help but feel that something is missing. But she finds solace in a local crop circle of craft bookers united by chore-shy husbands, demanding children, and occasional fantasies of their former single lives. And when the quiet ideal of their small town is shattered by a young mother's suicide, they band together to find out what went wrong. And it's not ringing a bell, so I need to read that. Okay, next up would be the Avalon Ladies Scrapbooking Society. Again, look at that cover. This is by Darian Gee. Have not read him or her. I will read you the opening. Welcome to Avalon, Illinois. Population 4,243. At Madeline's Tea Salon, the cozy hub of the Avalon community, local residents scrapbook their memories and make new ones. But across the town, other Avalonians are struggling to free themselves of the Isabel. That is another poorly constructed sentence. Goodreads really needs to help themselves. But across town, other Avalonians are struggling to free themselves. Isabella Kidd is fixing up her ramshackle house while sorting through the complications of her late husband's affair. Ava Catalina is mourning the love of her life and helping her young son grow up without his father. Local plumber Yvonne Tate is smart, beautiful, and new to Avalon, but finds that despite a decade of living life on her own terms, the past has a way of catching up no matter where she goes. And Frances Latham, mother to a boisterous brood of boys, eagerly anticipates the arrival of a little girl from China, unprepared for the emotional roller coaster of a foreign adoption. And I'm going to leave that one right there. I need to read those 2 books. They sound really good. Okay. Next up. Would be the 7th of May, which is Teacher Appreciation Day. And let me see where those books are. Okay, first up would be The Summer Before the War by Helen Simonson. And this is set in East Sussex, England in 1914. And it stars Beatrice Nash. And she is a Latin teacher. I will read you. This is also, by the way, this is from the author of Major Pettigrew's Last Stand. And I like the cover of this book, so if I enjoy Major Pettigrew, I'm going to pick this up. So here's the blurb. It is the end of England's brief Edwardian summer, and everyone agrees that the weather has never been so beautiful. Hugh Grange, down from his medical studies, is visiting his Aunt Agatha, who lives with her husband in the small, idyllic coastal town of Rye. Agatha's husband works in the Foreign Office, and she is certain he will ensure that this recent saber-rattling over the Balkans won't come to anything. And Agatha has more immediate concerns. She has just risked her carefully built reputation by pushing for the appointment of a woman to replace the Latin master. When Beatrice Nash arrives, with one trunk and several large crates of books, it is clear she is significantly more free-thinking and attractive than anyone believes a Latin teacher should be. For her part, mourning the death of her beloved father, who has left her penniless, Beatrice simply wants to be left alone to pursue her teaching and writing. But just as Beatrice comes alive to the beauty of the Sussex landscape and the colorful characters who populate Rye, the perfect summer is about to end. For despite Agatha's reassurances, the unimaginable is coming. Soon the limits of progress and the old ways will be tested as this small Sussex town and inhabitants go to war. It's one of those books that just screams, read me. Okay, next up, this shouldn't be a surprise. This is Anne of Avonlea. This is the second book in the Anne of Green Gables series. Anne, age 16, is home in Avonlea and teaching at the school where she grew up. We all know I love this book. I don't know anybody who doesn't love this series in its entirety. So if you're one of those few people that haven't read Anne of Green Gables, go invest. You won't be sorry, I promise. Okay, and next up, this should also not be a surprise. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I really can't say anything about this book other than it is phenomenal. Let me see if I can find a better description than it is phenomenal. Okay, I have failed to find a better description. Everything is either a complete plot summary, which, you know, at that point, why bother to read the book? And I just don't see the point of that. So, just trust me. It is an amazing book. Okay, next day is the 9th of May, and that is Ascension. Catholic religious holy day of obligation. And it's on the calendar for me, for you if you're Catholic and you forgot. for whatever reason. And as I film this, there's a lot going on within the church, so prayers have been pretty continual on my part. Okay. The 11th of May is Mother's Day. And so, let's do some Mother's Day, some mom books. First up is 1+1 by Jojo Moyes. I totally love the cover of this book. And I'm just going to read you the blurb. One single mom, one chaotic family, one quirky stranger, one irresistible love story. Had me at the tagline. So, yeah, that one's easy. Okay, I remember my mom reading this, and I have not read it. That is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, and this was published in 1989. It is definitely the story of mothers and daughters. 4 mothers, 4 daughters, 4 families, whose histories shift with the 4 winds, depending on who's telling the story. In 1949, 4 Chinese women, recent immigrants to San Francisco, meet weekly to play mahjong and tell stories of what they left behind in China. United in loss and new hope for their daughters' futures, they call themselves the Joy Luck Club. Their daughters, who have never heard these stories, think their mother's advice is irrelevant to their modern American lives, until their own inner crises reveal how much they've unknowingly inherited their mother's past. With wit and sensitivity, Amy Tan examines the sometimes painful, often tender, and always deep connection between mothers and daughters. As each woman reveals her secrets, trying to unravel the truth about her life, the strings become more tangled, more intertwined. Mothers boast or despair over their daughters, and daughters roll their eyes even as they feel the inextricable tightening of their matriarchal ties. Tan is an astute storyteller, apparently I need coffee. Enticing readers to immerse themselves in these lives of complexity and mystery. So, it's just one example of, or 2 examples of mothers in fiction. There are so many to choose from, and I didn't want this video to be an hour long. Okay, next up is the 15th of May. And that is Straw Hat Day. And let me tell you, I love me a good straw hat, especially when summer sun is strong and I'm outside gardening. However, I thought this would be easy to, go pick a couple books from my shelves that had straw hats on them. Was it easy? No, it was not, because, I apparently don't own any. On my Kindle, on my shelves, I have plenty of hats. On book covers, are any of them straw? No, they're not. So, here's what I found. First up would be Love Finds You in Mackinac Island, Michigan by Melanie Dobson. It is the first one in the Legacy of Love series. And it is Christian historical romance. And it is set at the end of the Gilded Age. And I love that hat. So I'm just going to read you the first paragraph of the description. Near the end of the Gilded Age, Elena Bissett's family has decided to spend one last summer at their fashionable home on Mackinac Island. They've lost their family fortune, and Mrs. Bissett hopes to arrange a marriage between Elena and an elusive millionaire named Chester Darrington. Intriguing. This next book is on Kindle Unlimited. I absolutely love the cover. That is A Month in Provence by Gillian Harvey. And it is contemporary fiction and romance, of course. Interior designer Nikki always used to know how to make the best of things. Ever since she lost her husband, though, things haven't been easy. She's had to raise her 2 daughters alone, and she's so proud to see them all grown up, and she knows that's down to her. But she can't help but feel like she doesn't know what to do with her life now. But then her best friend begs her to help out. Jenny is a TV exec, and her new renovation show is in peril. Only Nikki can help. The catch? Nikki needs to fly to Provence tomorrow to renovate a tumble-down B&B. Jenny doesn't mention the fact that the grumpy B&B owner, Robert, seems to need a makeover too. Or that the budget is next to nothing. Will Nikki be able to turn the B&B's fortunes around, save her friend's job, and maybe even find some happiness for herself under the blazing hot French sun this summer? Yeah, that's definitely a me book. Here's another one by Gillian Harvey. That is The French Chateau Escape. Again, it's on Kindle Unlimited. It's got a straw hat on the cover. And who can resist that cover? I will read you the opening paragraph. Click. Buy. A French chateau. Condition. May require improvement. It seemed like a good idea. Selling everything we own, just Mark and I, swapping our tiny little terrace London home and the heartbreak of not being able to start a family for an entire chateau in the middle of France. This has always been our dream, and now it's coming true. There's going to be some drama there. Okay. The Tutor's Daughter by Julie Klassen. Christian historical romance. Obvious straw bonnet. And let's see if I have another one. I do. I love her writing, by the way. This is Falling for a French Dream by Jennifer Bonnet. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. There's a straw hat. I love her writing. I've read one book by her. I have a bunch sitting on my Kindle that I've purchased. It's contemporary women's fiction. I absolutely loved the one I read, so I have no trouble recommending her. Okay. And that brings us to the 22nd of May. Which is Sherlock Holmes Day. Now, I tried to find some Sherlock Holmes adjacent fiction rather than just saying, go read Sherlock. Which, obviously, go read Sherlock. So, this is the first book in the Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes mystery series by Laurie R. King. I have read this. I've read a lot of this series, actually. That is The Beekeeper's Apprentice. And I will find a better cover than what is currently on my screen. I will read you the very brief description. Long retired, Sherlock Holmes quietly pursues his study of honeybee behavior on the Sussex Downs. He never imagines he would encounter anyone whose intellect matched his own, much less an audacious teenage girl with a penchant for detection. Miss Mary Russell becomes Holmes's pupil and quickly hones her talent for deduction, disguises, and danger. But when an elusive villain enters the picture, their partnership is put to a real test. Yeah. Okay. This is a definite variation on Sherlock Holmes, and a lot of you will not read this series. I, however, thoroughly enjoy it. The first book is A Study in Brimstone by G.S. Denning, and it is the first book in the Warlock Holmes series. It is a fantasy, humorous take on Sherlock Holmes, so I will read you the blurb. Sherlock Holmes is an unparalleled genius. Warlock Holmes is an idiot. A font of arcane power, certainly, but he's brilliantly dim. Frankly, he couldn't deduce his way out of a paper bag. The only thing he's really got going for him are the might of his 1,000 demons and his stalwart companion. Thankfully, Dr. Watson is always there to aid him through the treacherous shoals of Victorian propriety and save him from a gruesome death every now and then. Yes, he's a warlock, but I enjoyed that book so much. I think I'm on book 2 or 3 in the series, and it was fantastic. Okay, the next one I have not read, but that is the first book in the Baker Street Inquiry series by Michelle Birkby. That is The House at Baker Street, and this is obviously historical mystery. When Sherlock Holmes turns away the case of persecuted Laura Shirley, Mrs. Hudson, the landlady of Baker Street, and Mary Watson resolve to take on the investigation themselves. From the kitchen of Baker Street, the two women begin their inquiries and enlist the assistance of the Baker Street irregulars and the infamous Irene Adler. A trail of clues leads them to the darkest corners of Whitechapel, where the feared Ripper supposedly stalks. They discover Laura Shirley is not the only woman at risk, and it rapidly becomes apparent that the lives of many other women are in danger too. As they put together the pieces of an increasingly complicated puzzle, the investigation becomes bigger than either of them could have ever imagined. Can Mrs. Hudson and Mary Watson solve the case, or are they just pawns in a much larger game? It is time for Mrs. Hudson and Mary Watson to emerge from the shadows and stand in the spotlight. Readers will discover they are resourceful, intelligent, and fearless women with a determination to help those in need. So, okay, and this next one is young adult, and I haven't read it. I have seen the Netflix movie of the first one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. That is Enola Holmes, The Case of the Missing Marquess, and by Nancy Springer, and it is the first book in the series, and I will read you the blurb. Meet Enola Holmes, teenage girl turned detective and the younger sister to Sherlock Holmes. When Enola Holmes, sister to the detective, Sherlock, discovers her mother has disappeared, she quickly embarks on a journey to London to search for her. But nothing can prepare her for what awaits. Because when she arrives, she finds herself involved in the kidnapping of a young Marquess, fleeing murderous villains, and trying to elude her shrewd older brothers, all while attempting to piece together clues to her mother's strange disappearance. Amid all the mayhem, will Enola be able to decode the necessary clues and find her mother? Believe it or not, for being on Netflix, I watched it when it was first released, so back in the day. It was fabulous. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, I imagine the books are good too. Next up, 24th of May, which is Road Trip Day. And as I recall, no, I don't recall. I believe road trips are I'm checking, hang on. Yeah, road trips are the theme for book club for June. So timely, huh? Okay, first up would be the 100-year-old man, the 100-year-old man who climbed out the window and disappeared by John Hansen. And it is the first book in the 100-year-old man series. I believe I just recently picked this up. After a long and eventful life, Alan Carlson ends up in a nursing home, believing it to be his last stop. The only problem is, he's still in good health. A big celebration is in the works for his 100th birthday, but Alan really isn't interested, and he'd like a bit more of control over his alcohol consumption. So he decides to escape. He climbs out the window in his slippers and embarks on a hilarious and entirely unexpected journey. It would be the adventure of a lifetime for anyone else, but Alan has larger-than-life backstory. He has not only witnessed some of the most important events of the 20th century, but actually played a key role in them. Quirky and utterly unique, the 100-year-old man who climbed out of the window and disappeared has charmed readers across the world. It is just shy of 400 pages, and I need to know. There is just something in that description I need to know. Next road trip book is The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. American classic. I read this in high school, and at one point it won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and it is a story of the Great Depression. Okay. Oh, hang on. I forgot to pull a book. Okay. Next road trip book would be Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I've read this back recently. I have not read anything by this author. This is on my Read My Life list of choices for the year of 2014. And it was published by, who was it published by? Because that'll tell me how concerned I should be about this. Penguin Random House. So it should be okay. Okay. And the next book up, I believe, is the most famous road trip in Western canon. And I would be right. That is The Hobbit by Tolkien. No description necessary. I enjoyed it. It is very familiar. So if you're, one of those people who has trouble reading books that are very familiar to you, know that going in. Okay. And next day is the 27th of May, which is Memorial Day in the United States. And the obvious candidate here is The Women by Kristen Hanna. Not only is our heroine a war veteran, she was a Vietnam War veteran, she suffered from PTSD. It is a story that will break your heart and make you cry and fall in love with Kristen's writing, and you will not be sad you read it in any sense of the imagination. Okay, up next, The Sun in Splendor by Sharon K. Penman. This is historical fiction. It is part of the Read My Life Challenge for 1982. I just picked this up on Kindle. Not my preferred way to read this book. I'm trying to get a hold of a paperback copy. I just haven't picked it up yet. I will read you the description in full for this one. A glorious novel of the controversial Richard III. A monarch betrayed in life by his allies and betrayed in death by history. I know this is the first book in the series, by the way. In this beautifully rendered modern classic, Sharon K. Penman redeems Richard III, vilified as a bitter, twisted, scheming hunchback who murdered his nephews, the princes in the Tower, from his malign place in history with a dazzling combination of research and storytelling. Born into the treacherous courts of 15th century England, in the midst of what history has called the War of the Roses, Richard was raised in the shadow of his charismatic brother, King Edward IV. Loyal to his friends and passionately in love with the one woman who was denied him, Richard emerges as a gifted man, far more sinned against than sinning. This magnificent retelling of his life is filled with all the insights and sounds of battle, the customs and lore of the 15th century, the rigors of court politics, and the passions and prejudices of royalty. The mass market paperback of this book, which we all know I'm not reading, is 936 pages. The trade paperback is not much shorter. Here we go. I will tell you the page count for the trade paperback, which they have at 936 pages. So, we all know I love medieval history. We all know I'm going to read that book. Just not, yeah. Okay. Last up is a book I read with my physical book club actually it's the first book I read with them. That is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Burroughs. It has been made into a Netflix movie, which I have not seen. It is completely epistolary. I enjoyed it. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Okay. And that brings us to Gone with the Wind. It is definitely a war story. It is definitely tangentially related to Memorial Day. As I recall, there is plenty of reasons to read this for Memorial Day. As you know by now, this is on my May pile of possibilities, and I am very, very much looking forward to it. Okay. And that leads us to the 28th of May, which is National Hamburger Day. There are really no fiction books that are specifically about hamburgers. I am going to mention the Bob's Burgers cookbook. I've heard it's delicious. It is very hard to get a physical copy of this book. Every time it comes in stock, by the time I go to place the order, be it within minutes, it sells out. And getting a used copy that's in, better than good condition, next to impossible as well. And no, I don't buy cookbooks as electronic devices. So, when I get this book physically, I will be touting it all day long. And that leaves us one more day in May. That is the 31st of May. I had to go pick pickles up because, well, the 31st is National Parrot Day. So I thought you should be here for this. Okay, I have one fiction book recommendation for this. That is We'll Always Have Parrots by Donna Andrews. And it is the 5th book in the Meg Lansdowne series. All of her books have a bird in the title and on the cover. This one happens to have a parrot. So, should we read the description? Okay. Meg Lanslow knew the fan convention for her actor boyfriend's hit television series was going to be the ultimate in weird. But she came along because she figured Michael could use an occasional dose of sanity, and because it was an inspired place to sell her handcrafted weapons. And so far, she was dealing pretty well with the costume fans camped outside, the batch of escaped parrots. Come here. No. Step. Step. Ugh. And this is why you don't bring parrots next to books. Step. Step. Come on. Come on. Be nice. Pickles the bird. No. Nobody thinks you should go back there and disappear. Now, would you like to come here, please? Pick, pick. Step. Step. Okay, I'm going to extricate the bird. Well, that lasted long. Okay, where was I? And so far, she was dealing pretty well with the costume fans camped outside, the batch of escaped parrots and monkeys frolicking throughout the hotel, and the minefield of egos lurking behind the show's success. But soon after, Meg goes head-to-head with an egomaniacal series star, Tamerlane Wincliffe Jones. The queen bee turns out brutally murdered. Now, with Michael in the running as prime suspect, Meg will go up against an all-star cast of not even innocent parties, hidden identities, and buried motives. And she'll cross swords with a deviously obsessed murderer determined to write her out of the picture for good. This was published in 2003, and I am pretty sure I read this immediately after we got Pickles, so that would be 2005, but don't quote me on that. Okay, that brings us to the end of May. It was a jam-packed month. I hope there was something new on your list to add for books. It was a good mix of genres and categories, and I need to get my hand on that burger cookbook. And I need to get my hand on a physical copy of The Sun and Splinter. So, how's your May? Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.